Well, good morning. Welcome to a video on the road. I'm using my new hands-free camera attachment again, which seems to work pretty well, and hopefully there's not too much background noise. I wanted to make this video about giving and receiving, because a lot of people that I speak to, including myself, like this, always, whenever I teach any of these videos, I'm always putting my own perspective, my own sense of what I've been through, let's say, or what I've been looking at, and the healing and everything into the video. Otherwise, you're teaching what you haven't learned, you know, you're the unhealed healer. And you kind of have to teach to learn. It's part of the process, you know, you hold yourself accountable to what it is you're teaching. And of course, when those, what do you call it, contradictory moments, anyway, when those moments come along where you fall short of the teachings, because you've been teaching it, you have to apply the principles to yourself. Hypocrite, that's it. Those hypocritical moments come along, otherwise you're a hypocrite, right? And I love how Jesus sort of berates people in the New Testament, you know, oh, hypocrites. Like, you got to add that "oh" in there for extra emphasis. It's like, you know, you're one of those sort of. But anyway, so you teach to learn. All right, so giving and receiving. A lot of people, I have a lot of conversations throughout the weeks and months and years and decades with people going through their transformative process. Most of them using A Course in Miracles. If they're not, I usually put them onto it because it's a common language that we can begin to relate to each other through. That makes things a lot easier. There's always that initial sort of coming to terms with it, where you have to learn the concepts, etc. But once that's done, you know, you're talking about, Jesus says in the Course, you know, forgiveness substitutes for learning that might have taken thousands of years. Right? And you have to look at that in terms of reincarnation, even though reincarnation is not true, because the overall experience of humanity is not true either. It's all an illusion, reincarnation within it, right? But and he says, even, you know, what's 10,000 years for they have come? Well, the whole point of all of this that we're doing, the whole point of this teaching and learning, is to learn to collapse time. And all of the principles that the Course offers, you know, like he says, you either believe this Course in its entirety or not at all. So all of the principles that the Course offers, you will find that as you go through your day-to-day sort of just human experience, the opportunities will show up for you to apply the principles of what it is you're learning. And it kind of keeps pace with you. I've lost track of the amount of people that have said to me things like, oh, I was just reading that in the Course yesterday, or you know, in a conversation that we're having perhaps, and they say, oh, I just read that yesterday, or you know, I'll be talking about something and they'll be saying, oh, I'm looking at exactly the same thing, and finger on my nose, it's because it's my mind waking up, and the world out there not being separate from my mind is always going to reflect back to me where it is that I am and what it is that I'm going through in the process of universal correction that is the atonement, right? Now, in all those conversations that I've had, sometimes they take the form, I mean, they're always talking about the same thing. It's always just either love or fear, make a choice, right? But you look at love or fear in context with your relationships as you're going through them and as they seem to show up And you'll have specific people that you'll meet that play different parts for you, right? You've asked them to play those parts, some good, some bad, if you still believe in good and bad, but they're either going to play the part of representing the blessing of God's graces in your life, or the opportunity to learn of God's graces again in an area of your life or an aspect of your universal relationship that might be lacking. Now, one of those principles is giving and receiving. Jesus says in the Course, giving and receiving are the same in truth, but of the two, giving is the greatest, right? So we tend to have no problem relating how it is that giving is good, right? But there does tend to be a bit of a it catches in your throat when somebody says to you that receiving is good. You should let yourself receive, right? And all of these things sort of all come together, and you realize that sometimes I'm going to be the one whom giving is done through, and sometimes I'm going to be the one that receiving occurs through, right? And two, as an idea inclusive of the avatar of the body, right? You've got to include the body in, right? For the greater good. Giving for the greater good, receiving for the greater good. They're the same in truth. Now, in reality, in eternity, God only gives. God has one action. God simply extends itself, right? Or himself. I like to think of God as itself. I tend to think of God more like the Force in Star Wars, or even if you wanted to look at it in the old Greek ideas, or Egyptian ideas of Egypt, I used to believe that Ra is the god of the sun, or the sun was God, and so the extension of God thereby is God's light and warmth. Now, very much akin to that, in eternity, God extends itself continuously, right? And that creation, which is what we call creation, God's creation, the extension of itself, in a sense is already complete. It's already whole. It's already fully everywhere and everything forever. And you can't wrap that around in your head and try to understand that, because the mind, the human mind that dwells on the earth, the conceptual mind, is the mind that is in denial of it and has forgotten what that is, which is exactly why we're doing all this spiritual healing, so we can remember the nature of truth, which is divine. When you have the experience of enlightenment, when you have the experience of the awakening of your mind, the full awakening, I mean, you might have many smaller experiences along the way, revelations, but when you have the full awakening, you won't want to be back here. You'll just want to stay in eternity where you actually are, dreaming that you're here, but awake in eternity. So, getting back to giving and receiving, the way that you know that you have received, right, and because God's will is already done, everything that God is offering you, right, which is required by you to fulfill your part in the atonement throughout the nature of all the specifics of the relationships that you find yourself in on earth, from the beginning of time to the end of time, it has already been given to you. In a sense, there's nothing to pray for. However,
for 172000331.
However, somebody ringing me. When you pray, what you're actually doing is opening your mind to receive into awareness what it is that you've already been given, right? Now, what you're asking for is a way on earth to know of the true nature of your relationship with God, right? Now, in the recognition that you've already received everything, the way that you witness to that is by giving it. Okay? And I've had people say to my face, I've got nothing to give. Well, you're not going to know what you've got to give until you say yes to giving. Until you say yes, it's like St. Francis of Assisi said, it is in giving that we receive. And what you are receiving is recognition that you are not limited, that you are supported by a higher power, and that somehow your needs to fulfill what's been asked of you or required of you in that situation has been met miraculously, therefore verifying the nature of God in your life. God is a fact. You may not yet have experienced direct union with God, but God is a fact. And you'll have these moments through giving and receiving where that occurs again and again and again, and you'll realize, as Albert Einstein said, nature abhors a vacuum, which means in nature, if there is a vacuum, nature doesn't like the vacuum. It wants to fill it up, right? Now, God being whole and perfect, and you being part of God, if you have a lack or you have a need, God doesn't like that. I mean, I'm just talking theoretically. God doesn't not like or like. God just is, right? But so the nature of God as being continually extending and forever giving, etc. When you pray, because you have free will, right? When you pray, you're opening your mind to the flow of the universe, which is God, and that flows into your life, into your heart, into your mind, because you're a divine being. You're not this body, and something occurs through you where you will be able to be in receipt of the awareness of what God has put into your life, or the universe has put into your life, by giving it away. All right? Now, all you have to do is say yes. Everything in this is faith. Right? All you got to do is say yes. So somebody comes up and asks you for $10, and you say, I don't have $10, but I'm willing to say yes because I want to help you out. Right? Now, if that willingness to say yes is true, the universe will fill up that need. Now, how does that $10 come about? I don't know, but it'll happen miraculously. Right? It'll happen miraculously. I guarantee you. I always say, and I teach all my crew in satsang and that, and Tyna, I always say, Jesus pays the bills. It's the same idea, right? You've got to let the universe support you, trust the process, etc. And you'll be amazed. Now, that's going to require that leap of faith to say yes in the first place. And because you fundamentally find yourself in an experience of denial of God, what you're doing is contradicting the experience, right? You're going against everything that the experience represents, whether you've experienced that or recognized that or not. It doesn't matter, right? What you're actually saying yes to is, I mean, in the symbology of things, how it shows up in form, you're saying yes to $10, right? But what you're actually saying yes to is taking another step in faith to come to the realization that you're supported by a higher power. And I hope that makes sense. Whatever occurs in form is symbolic. Whatever occurs through people to people, people to situations, or avatar to other avatars, it's always symbolic. It's not actually occurring. You're not healing anything here. You're awakening in eternity to a realization of your true nature, which is already actually awake. It's kind of bizarre, right? But because you're so profoundly, and I should say, because I'm so profoundly asleep and believe that I'm actually here in the world, I need witnesses to show me that the world is false, that there is no world, so that I can come to realize there's something else going on here. This road's really bumpy too. Something else going on here. I hope it's not too noisy. So, concrete roads, what a winner. We'll try anything in time and space. So giving and receiving. if you have trouble receiving, if you're someone who somebody offers you something and you're like, oh no, it's okay, no, it's okay, you're going to have to at some point make a mental note of the fact that you're continually resisting what it is that the universe is trying to give you, right? It might even be $10, right? But what it is, and you look at it and you're like, why am I so, I'm entitled to everything just as anyone else is. I'm a divine being just as anyone else is. Let me learn to say yes, because what I'm saying yes to isn't something that I think out there, this person wants to give me $10, but maybe I don't even really need $10 in a different circumstance. And I feel bad for taking it, maybe because other people could use it better than me, you know, need it more, whatever excuse, and limiting God again. And my beard's all over the place today. And, you know, so you look at that and you're like, all right, well, God is offering me the $10. I need to say yes to it because I don't know why it's offering me. I don't know why the universe is giving this to me. But when I say yes to receiving, I'll find out, right? So somebody comes up and you did something, and somebody comes up and there's $10 extra, and then somebody the next day is going to say, hey man, can you lend me $10? It'll be miraculous, right? Whatever. I'm just making up a scenario here, but you'll recognize it in relationship symbolically to your own situations. So learn to receive. Be willing to say yes, and I'm keeping my finger on my nose there because one of the attributes of a teacher of God is generosity. And I remember going through a period of pushing myself to be generous. I've always kind of thought of myself as someone who's as giving as anybody else, let's say, you know, but to be generous is to be generous of self. If that transfers to financial, material, whatever, so be it, but generous of self. So when you're having a conversation with somebody, perhaps generous might be to be a better listener, right? To be more open to being helpful, to not just pushing that person aside to give them the next spiritual concept, but to let them to tell their story. Now, I always listen to people's stories once. Right? I already know what the story is. It's the story of the human condition. It doesn't matter what you want to say in time and space. The fact that there is a story at all tells me that, all right, this person or this mind believes the world is real. Right? Now, in the Course, Jesus says, one problem, one solution. You believe in separation from God, or you believe your separation from God, which is the problem. The solution is you're not separate from God, right? Now, that's the solution that somehow I would want to offer in generous ways to my brother who comes to me, bringing me my burdens of his life, my burdens, so I can accept atonement for my brother's suffering, right? Because I'm the dreamer of the dream. At a certain point, when you enter into a relationship under the recognition and realization that the purpose of the relationship is healing, there comes a moment where you have to accept atonement for yourself, and it always comes. It's always there, right? And that moment will come about when you're willing to listen, when you're willing to take responsibility and be your brother's keeper in the true sense, being truly generous of spirit. And it's not really even in that sense generous, I mean, because there's a responsibility implied, right? So, one of the things in giving and receiving, I do sometimes find myself saying, and this is probably why I'm teaching this video today, nothing's ever by accident, I do sometimes find myself saying, oh no, it's okay, you keep it, you know, in terms of like if somebody's offering you help or money or whatever. And I have this sort of spiritual thing where the universe will provide. I don't need it, the universe will provide. But that's also erroneous, because that is the universe providing. That person that's offering something is the universe providing. And by being willing to receive it of them, I'm also giving my brother an opportunity to see that they are also supported by a higher power. I hope that makes sense, right? Everything, every situation, brother to brother, singular perception to divine relationship, everything is always teaching and learning. Everything is always giving and receiving. Okay, it's the one thing. Giving and receiving goes on all through the day. And there's probably many, many more examples that I could make to try and express what I'm talking about here. And in a sense, there isn't really any point, because you will, now that I've planted this seed, you'll begin to see where it is in your own relationships that giving and receiving are required, right? Of you and for you. I think I just went through a radar there. Doing 10 Ks over. That could be my last. I've got 2 points left on my license. Well. Walking's good for your health, they say. Well, it's a long way to walk from anywhere to anywhere in Australia, so I better focus on my driving. But anyway, that's it. I just wanted to put that out there. It's like when you start to see it, healer and that which is healed is the same thing as giving and that which is being given to, right? It's always self to self, always I am to I am. And every step you take, every step in willingness that you take to practice the principles relieves you by being witness to the nature of God in your life, or providence in your life, whatever you want to call it, the force, relieves you of some kind of limited idea about yourself as the separated identity, as the small I, the little I, right? The avatar association doesn't actually exist. It's a projection of the mind in the mind of God, an idea in God's mind. So essentially, as this avatar, as this association that is consciously navigating the dream, I seem to have this autonomy to a certain point, until of course you question where you come from and what's going on. But there seems to be this autonomy where free will seems to suggest that I could have made decisions other than the ones I've made that have led me here, led me to this point making this video, and you accordingly watching this video, right? But it's not actually true. God's will is done. Everything is already perfect. It's only time in the realization of our own perfection that we're looking at as an idea of learning to collapse it through the application of forgiveness as it's taught by Jesus in A Course in Miracles, not as it's taught in the world where because I'm the stronger or better person, I'll forgive you. That's not forgiveness at all. Right? That's still separation. True forgiveness is through atonement, where you realize I'm responsible, finger on the nose. I'm responsible for what I see. I'm responsible for suffering. If my brother is suffering, I'm responsible for it. I am the dreamer of the dream, not the Dave of the dream, but higher mind. The Dave of the dream is totally included, and because this is a physical resurrection, every opportunity to which is accepted to heal the mind of the belief in separation through the avatar of Dave also benefits Dave Avatar, right? And in my case in point, being healed of cancer miraculously without chemotherapy, drugs or anything, just by the grace of God, right? An absolute true biblical style miracle. And it happened like that, you know. But and that story is in my experiences playlist. If you go to my playlist there, Deb and Tyna have been very diligently trying to catalogue my now over 500 videos, which hopefully in 10,000 years to come will be a useful resource, or hopefully be an unnecessary resource, one or the other. Hopefully consciousness will have raised up sufficiently that all of this shit will be being taught in school, at primary school level, instead of Sesame Street, where one of these things is not like the other, where you're taught to judge. You know, so hopefully the laying aside of judgment, or better, the judging for your holiness, judging for your perfection, is something that catches on and begins to get taught within the family unit, within the school ground, etc., etc., etc. All right, that's about it. Just a short one. Please like and subscribe if you've got this far. And also, I'm really asking for all you guys from my heart, share these videos. All you got to do is press the share button below and it'll say copy link, and then you can post the link if you like the video, paste it into your Facebook page or whatever else you're on, Instagram, whatever, and tag your friends in it. Tag people that you think might be interested in spiritual stuff. I mean, not every video is going to be a big wow for every person, but eventually the big wows will come, whether through watching my videos or Eckhart Tolle's videos or whoever. It doesn't really matter, but you have those moments, and it's not necessarily a specific thing that you have to stick to one teacher, right? I recognize the need to stick to one teacher for myself, contradicting what I just said, because I was directed to my teacher specifically by a voice from the sky, where I could train to become a teacher of teachers, right? Now, I have also had many other teachers, even in that place. A lot of my teachers, senior students, and I had a guide and a sponsor through the AA portion of my life, etc. So in the sense of formal teaching, I've had many teachers, but teaching and learning, giving and receiving goes on all throughout the day. So if you can remember that everyone's your teacher, that there's no one from whom you can't learn. I mean, if you saw me in the street and you didn't know who I was, you would think I'm just some sort of guy that likes Harley Davidson motorcycles or something. You would have no clue who I was. You know, so just remember that. I want to see, because it's true, I've had some incredible conversations with people that I've just bumped into in coffee shops and places, you know, and just blows, you know, a woman in Tilba once who was a Buddhist nun, and just wearing normal day clothes, and we had this incredible conversation, and I suddenly realized that I was having a conversation with somebody who was profoundly self-conscious. And it brought me right back to the here and now. It brought me like to, oh, this person's awake. This person's like totally onto it, you know. So giving and receiving goes on all through the day. Don't decide what you think giving and receiving ought to look like. Just let it be miraculous. It can look like anything. All right, well, I love you, and don't forget, like, subscribe, share, tag, whatever you can do. I mean, the more that awaken, and ideas are increased by sharing. So, thank you. Peace.